In 2021, the American Cancer Society estimated there'd be over 234,000 prostate cancer cases and roughly about 34,000 associated deaths. In 2022, the American Cancer Society estimates now there'll be over 268,000 prostate cancer cases and roughly the same amount of deaths. This is an 8% increase from the prior year. If you should be part of those cases, the question is, will you be prepared to live a quality life after prostate cancer? Welcome. My name is Derrick Butts. I'm the president and co-founder of the Prostate Cancer Awareness Alliance. And I want to thank ZERO Cancer for the opportunity to really talk to you and share with you my survivor story. Let me take you on a journey. Let me take you on the call that changed my life. It was March 10th of 2016. I was at a cybersecurity conference in Georgetown. Time was roughly about 10 minutes before 5 o'clock. I got a call from the nurse at the hospital saying, "Mr. Butts, sorry to inform you, but we found prostate cancer." At that particular point in time, it didn't really, the 15 years prior to my diagnosis that I'd been studying and waiting for this day, it didn't matter that, all these things were circling in my head as far as how soon could they get it out? Will they be able to remove all the cancer once they go in? Will I still be able to function as a man after the surgery? Most of all, how long will it take me to recover? These are all the questions that were circulating in my head, and it seemed like an eternity. And then after about a minute, I heard the voice on the other say, "Excuse me, we'd like for you to come in for a consultation." At that immediate point in time, I said no. She was a little taken back. I said, "I know exactly what I want to do. I want you to take it out. Can you schedule a surgery next week?" She chuckled after being taken back and indicated, "Although, Mr. Butts, we can't do it that fast. We'll put you on the next available." It was at that particular point in time I realized I had something going on, and I've been waiting for that day. As mentioned, my name is Derrick Butts. I am currently the Chief Information Officer and Cybersecurity Officer for a nonprofit in Washington, D.C. I've spent 3 decades in information technology and cybersecurity preparedness. I've also spent the last 50 years as a martial arts practitioner and mastered 2 different styles. I've also recently, since last year, been participating in as a stakeholder in the Integrated Cancer Diagnostics and Surveillance Studies, which is a program really looking at cancer, in particular prostate cancer, and was along with other cancers, to really kind of understand how to best go about those, setting up guidelines for treatments and other services. I'm an avid cyclist, getting in between 50 to 75 miles a week, weather permitting. But I'm also a father, a son, a husband. I'm a co-author for a book that my father and I wrote on prostate cancer family affair. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. But most of all, I'm a 6-year prostate cancer survivor and also an advocate on prostate cancer. Let's look at my family history. The picture here shows 4 generations. Of those 4 generations, there are 3 generations of prostate cancers. Of the 3 generations of prostate cancers, only 2 generations of survivors. Between my father, his brother, my uncle, and then myself, it's one of those things that wasn't a matter if I was going to get it, it was a matter of when I was going to get it. My son's picture here is 31. As a 4th generation person, he will most likely get it, but that still remains to be seen. Hopefully not. When I look at the past experiences, each of us had different procedures. My father having a radical prostatectomy before robotics, my uncle having radiation treatment, and I had laparoscopic prostatectomy using the Da Vinci robot system. Each of us had 3 different procedures with 3 different outcomes. I was able to learn from what they had gone through to kind of figure out what was going to be best for me. Also, since my father's diagnosis and treatment back in 1994, I was able to also really understand what was going on. I was 38 when I started monitoring my prostate because of his incident. And because of this, it allowed me to really understand what to look for and kind of studying what the treatments were available at that particular time. It also allowed me to understand what detection would look like and things to look for based on my age, my activities, and other events that were taking place. I was able to really look at not only the treatments, but what facilities in the area offered the best treatments that I was looking for. As I was looking through all of this, I had to also look at how I was going to prepare for cancer, knowing that I didn't have it just yet, but just in case, would I be ready for it? Learning your family history is very important. For me, I was lucky that my father was very vocal about the fact that I should be proactive with my prostate health. Seeing what he had gone through was something that he didn't want me to go through, and being proactive would allow me to at least be on top of those things if it should happen. I had to really look at not only what my father's side, but also my mother's side to make sure there was no other family history involved to see if it might spread across from one gene generation to the next. I also had to look at the baseline, the fact that I was an individual, roughly 40 years old, 38 before getting to 40. I had to understand what was going to be involved as far as the treatment. If you have not had your prostate check, your PSA check, and you're age 40, I highly recommend you do it now. Learning about the signs of prostate cancer trouble is one thing. How those signs happen before you actually understand what they are is something you really don't want to wait to happen. I began attending informationals, educational sessions on prostate cancer, really understand not only the treatments that were out there, but also the side effects. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. I also understood that eating a healthy diet, low sugar, fewer processed foods was also important because it all contributed to the cancer. And also, it's a lot easier when you get to a different lifestyle change of not eating processed foods or certain meats, to have somebody else do it with you. If your family is involved, that makes that journey a whole lot easier to work with. In looking at the research treatments, as I mentioned before, the family history is important. When you're looking at the treatments, really understand if you're reaching the age 50 or higher, there's a pretty good chance you may get prostate cancer. It's about a 1 in 8 chance that you will actually be diagnosed with prostate cancer in your lifetime. However, if you're an African American man and you're roughly over the age of 50, there's a 1 in 5 chance you're most likely get prostate cancer. And if you're African American male between the ages of 50 or younger, there's a 1 in 3 chance you may be diagnosed with prostate cancer, especially with a family history. I was the 1 in 3. So when I started researching that, I looked at all the family history, my lifestyle, and things that were involved. When you are diagnosed with cancer, they look at things such as your Gleason score, the stage of your cancer, understand. And based on your prognosis of your doctor, it's really important to understand what's the best treatment for you at that particular time. When you're going through this, they're going to give you all different types of things to look for. Active surveillance, radical prostatectomy, which is what I had, radiation therapy treatment, focal therapy, and some call it cyberknife, hormonal therapy, and just overall, there are other things that are out there too with photon and proton therapy treatments as well. With all the plethora of options that you can possibly choose, you really have to look at and understand all the side effects associated with those. For treatment options, it's really looking to manage expectations no matter what treatment you choose. That's going to be important. So prepare for my prostate cancer treatment. As I mentioned before, I'm a cyclist. I'm also a martial artist, a practitioner. I chose a radical prostatectomy because of my lifestyle. It's pretty active. And the last thing I wanted to do was have to keep going back and actively monitoring my prostate. So I chose the radical prostatectomy because I felt that was going to be the best for me and my family. I also looked at the side effects based on prior history. And I also went back to my doctor and asked them for other cases of people they've treated within the past 6 months to a year with similar lifestyles to kind of get an idea what they had gone through on their journey post-treatment. I wanted to understand the side effects they might have experienced. And if possible, was there somebody else who also had a family history of prostate cancer? In doing this, I was actually connected to a lawyer who was 65 years of age, who also had family members who were prostate cancer survivors of prior generations, but also he was a martial artist practitioner. And that was important to me because it was somebody similar, a little older than me, but had a similar lifestyle that was very active. I talked to him about his treatment and his side effects. And because of that, it gave me a little bit more comfort in understanding what I may be possibly going through. So moving forward that, I decided to prepare. Now, like I said, I've been training or looking at monitoring my prostate for 15 years. One of the things I wanted to do was really look at three different things, looking at the mental aspect, the physical aspect, and the spiritual aspect. When it came to the mental aspect, I had to be comfortable in the decision that I chose and not have any regrets moving forward. If I should suffer from incontinence or erectile dysfunction, I was going to be okay with that because I'd still be here. Physically, I was preparing my body for what's called recovery mode. As an athlete, when you train for either a century, 100 miles, or if you're training for a next black belt test, you get your body in a state that you're repairing itself for the next iteration or the next challenge or the next event. I decided to do that, and I'll tell you how. But spiritually, I also had to be comfortable with the fact that my faith played a part with my soul and understanding that I was going to be comfortable with no matter the outcome and be able to live with that from here to the whenever. So it began. 4 weeks out, I began doing my Kegel exercises based on the recommendation of the doctor. This is going to be due to the fact that my prostate's going to be cut out. I knew that I was no longer going to have a prostate to kind of be a stop valve to urinate. I also did a 35-mile speed ride just before. This was going to help to get my body in what I call the recovery mode that I mentioned earlier. Knowing that they were going to go in through my core, I wanted to make sure my core was solid. The morning of my procedure, I actually did 350 body crunches. Now, this was important also because I wanted to make sure my body was in a state as a recovery mode, but also knowing that I was going to be able to have a quicker healing aspect after my particular procedure. And then just minutes before they were wheeling me down to the operating room, just saying a prayer, finding comfort, and knowing that I've done everything I could possibly do to prepare for this day. I was going under the knife. And when I came out, I was going to start my journey as a prostate cancer survivor. Leading up to that, it was very important to engage your spouse and your family early. I was very fortunate I have Diane with me, who's been there for over 34 years now. But when I was going through this, as I mentioned earlier, the research and just understanding, men, we seem to tune out when we hear the word cancer and everything else becomes gibberish. But she was able to help me navigate and understand the doctor visits, what he was telling me, the biopsies, the treatments, the options, the pros and cons based on the side effects that would be applicable to depending on the type of treatment that I chose, but also knowing my lifestyle and understanding cancer is something that just doesn't affect you as the man, but it also affects your spouse. They're going to go through highs and lows, depression, anxiety, stress, just like you may go through. But if you prepare properly, both of you can get through this. My family, as I mentioned earlier, I have 2 sons. Both of them have been engaged. Both of them understand that they can also be a high risk of prostate cancer. This is important for them to understand early, even though they're a lot younger than when I was told. But just to know that it exists, that it's a possibility within our gene line, helps them to prepare for it in the future. And having me, their grandfather, and my uncle, just gives them a peace of mind that know they'll also get through this. The bottom line is, your family really wants you to be around. My father is a 27-year prostate cancer survivor. And even though he still suffers from incontinence, erectile dysfunction, his whole thing is, I'm here, I'm living, I'm enjoying my life. I can spend it with my family, my kids, and my grandkids. This other thing, when you're looking at this, as I mentioned with my sons, other males in your family, extended family, encourage them also to be proactive with their prostate health. It's really important because it's in your gene line. They could also be one of those cases if they don't check it or get it treated properly or early. So in preparation for life after cancer really starts with asking your questions earlier on. When you're looking at this, there are 2 forms of a mindset. You can have a checkers mindset, or you can have a chess mindset. When you ask yourself, if I'm playing checkers, I'm really waiting for my opponent to make a move before determining my own. However, if I'm playing chess, I'm really thinking more critically, strategically. I'm trying to be ahead at least 2 or 3 moves, if not more, ahead of my opponent. In this particular case, your opponent's cancer. And if you're waiting for cancer to make a move and you're feeling pain, you're having frequent urination, or you're having trouble going to the bathroom. These are signs that you really were hope you would catch earlier and not wait. Cancer is something can be defeated. Cancer, prostate cancer specifically, is a silent killer. It's one of those things with me. I chose the chess mindset, and I really encourage you to adopt the chess mindset also. Prostate cancer is the number 2 cancer in the US for men. It's also a silent killer. When I was diagnosed with my prostate cancer, I was actually asymptomatic. What that means is I had no symptoms, I had no frequent urination, I had no problems or pain when it came to moving forward. The only thing I knew is that my PSA levels were rising. And because of that, it alerted me to say, I really need to go get this checked. And I'm glad I did. Preparing for life as a prostate cancer survivor is something you really need to plan for. Although it may happen naturally, the more you plan for it, the better the outcome. As I mentioned before, I was a 15-year, pretty much in preparation, preparing for this procedure. I knew my PSA from age 38 and every year after that, and understood the changes that would take place if it went up a half a point. In my case, it moved from 3.32 to 4.32, which I knew something was wrong. I also needed to understand, when I went through this, what my post-treatment was going to be like, setting the expectations. Me being able to reach out to talk to somebody else that had gone through this was important, because it really helped me to kind of say, even though I know my treatment was the same, but my expectations or actual survivorship and actual recovery was going to be different, it gave me a sense of mind and understanding that I could have similar results, and I was hoping for is just as much. My cancer of the 4 stages was actually diagnosed as stage 3B. It was contained within the prostate, but also within the seminal vesicle just outside the prostate. But overall, it did not escape either 2 of those glands. So they were able to do full removal. My Gleason score was a 4.3. And my PSA, as I mentioned earlier, when I first started the diagnosis of the treatment, it was at 3.32 and moved to 4.32. By the time they took it out, it actually moved to 7.68. This was about 5 months in the process. To me, that was a pretty aggressive cancer. And like I said, I was asymptomatic. So if I hadn't caught it then, chances are it could have spread and it could have gone to stage 4. Most of all, I was glad they got it. The follow-ups after the treatment, whether it's the first week, the first month, the first 6 months, the first year, the first 2 years, everything came back as undetectable. I was glad that they got it all. But it's being persistent and really being proactive that really helped me to do that. Follow your doctor's instructions when it comes to healing. This is important. As a cyclist, you can imagine I had to stay off my bike for 8 weeks. I was chomping at the bit to try to get back out and do some strenuous or physical activities. For someone who's very active and has an active lifestyle, that's part of going through setting the expectations you're preparing. Understand that these are things you have to go through to minimize any type of setbacks you may have or experience. Most of all, after my procedure, I was be able to begin my life as a prostate cancer survivor. So what does prostate cancer look like for me? Family. Being around for my sons, watch them grow, watch them do their craft, and most of all, my youngest son, being chosen for a part in Jenny in Georgia, which was aired on Netflix back in 2021. Seeing him make his debut, be able to enjoy and celebrate the fact that he's actually moving forward as an actor. It also looks like living. As I mentioned before, I'm a martial arts master, practitioner, and also an instructor. Being able to participate with my class, Tai Chi, Tang Soo Do, self-defense, being able to continue what I love and enjoy it every single week. This is part of living. In addition to having fun with my dogs, Quincy and Zolly, whether we're doing Halloween type things or whether we're taking a 20 or 25-mile bike ride. Most of all, as I mentioned, I'm a cyclist. Being able to get back with my team and cycle is something I really look forward to as part of my living. Also sharing. As I mentioned before, prostate cancer is something that we don't always talk about as men. My father and I wrote a book. Before I was diagnosed, I found out my father was working on a book diagnosing what he had gone through, or kind of capturing and reliving what he'd gone through in a book. I told him at the time of my procedure, "You wrote the first half, let me write the second half." We actually released a book called Prostate Cancer, A Family Affair. And what it does, it gives an account of our three lives, myself, my uncles, and my father's, and the procedures that we've gone through and the ups and downs that we actually lived through afterwards. Some good, some bad, some with family, some with not. But it's really understanding you can't really do this alone. And if you do, it's going to be a lot harder than you think. The book was written as a simple process to really kind of help men understand prostate cancer is something you can live beyond. Prostate is something as you can get through. Most of all, there is life after prostate cancer. But we also wrote it in simple layman's terms. We took out a lot of the medical jargon. We gave you a lot of questions you can ask your doctor if you should be diagnosed. So you can really start being more proactive with your life. But most of all, give you a sense that there is life and you can enjoy a life, a good quality of life after prostate cancer. This book is also available on Amazon. As I mentioned, helping others is something I really wanted to do and really had a passion and calling for after my procedure. To help others live their life beyond cancer was really important to me. I had the luxury of meeting two other men working for nonprofits in Prince George's County. One of them was the Community Ministries of Prince George's County, and one of them was Emmanuel Health Education. We got together and we formed a group in Washington, D.C. called the Prostate Cancer Awareness Alliance, DMV. And our purpose is really to help focus on the underserved communities, disadvantaged communities throughout the area, DC, Maryland, and Virginia. We developed a grassroots structure. We realized that everybody's going to come to their prostate cancer journey at a different point on their journey. And we're looking to meet men where they are in those particular cases. The other thing is we're looking at the relevance to help provide education and information to create a greater awareness. So at the right time, if they should be diagnosed, where to go, who to see, what questions to ask, and just be more knowledgeable to have a better decision-making process. We also looked at the integrity of the information we were providing. We wanted to make sure it was honest, truthful, evidence-based, and give them more information to be comfortable that no matter what they chose, they could understand the decisions, they could set expectations, and the impact it would have on their life. We also stressed the form of proactivity. Just as I'm talking to you all today, it's very important that you are very proactive and have a sense of urgency about understanding your prostate health and understanding prostate cancer if you should be diagnosed. Overall, we just want men to get a grip on prostate cancer. After all, you understanding is half the battle. You knowing what to do with it is the other half. So why do we exist, and where does PCAA really form? We're more of a prostate cancer awareness group, and we found it important for us to really work with those men and their families to really understand their prostate health. But more so, really understand from a community sense, if you should be diagnosed, which hospitals, prostate cancer treatment centers, cancer support groups were out there within my area. We thought this was important because we realized in talking to several men and survivors over the years, it was really hard for them to understand. You have your primary care physician, and you have a urologist. But sometimes we understand that they may not be best suited for you or what you're trying to go through. We wanted men to help them understand the prostate cancer, where to go in their community to really understand the aspects of it. So we formed a group, the Prostate Cancer Awareness Alliance, DMV. And we actually started to form alliances with local prostate cancer centers, hospitals, advocating and helping us to help them and vice versa to reach the underserved communities. We would ask them about the programs and how they're reaching out. We would ask them the trials and the clinics and the other services, the prostate cancer screenings that would take place. And most of all, we decided to say, let's take all this information and put it together in one site. So we did. Our website is not looking to recreate the wheel, but our website is looking to consolidate that information that's important. If you should be diagnosed or just want to understand, where can I go to get that information? Locally, right now, it targets the DC, Maryland, Virginia areas. However, we're looking to expand on that, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. As we also been looking to do primarily DC, Maryland, Virginia, We've had the fortune of actually working with several men over the Christmas holidays. Two men were prostate cancer survivors that recently had treatments between July and June of last year. One of them was actually going on December 13th, and the other one started his treatment on January 4th. And us being able to help them was important because it gave them a sense of calm and understanding that they would get through it. These particular men weren't all in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. Most of these that we talked to were actually in New York, California, Texas, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. And there's a few other states, but for the most part, majority of the people we talked to were in New York, as well as California. And they've asked if we can take our model of consolidating and work with local community hospitals, facilities, research, cancer treatment centers to help bring this information to them in a collective space. And we're currently working on that for 2022. The other thing we have on our site is a sharing of survivor stories. You saw a picture of Stan earlier. Stan was actually diagnosed about 4 months before I was and had his treatment about 4 months before I did. And one of the things in looking at, we as men are not always quick to share what's going on with us. As a matter of fact, even though Stan had already had his procedure and we're in the same cycling group, I didn't know about Stan's procedure or what he was going through until a month before my surgery. It wasn't until I made conference or talked to one of my cycling buddies, I let him know I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. He said, you should really reach out to Stan and talk to him. And then talking to Stan, I was really understanding that he had just gone through this procedure. And I was very surprised because we've been cycling for a while. And then I realized I didn't really see him for the past 4 months. And now I know why. Stan is also a prostate cancer survivor of 6 years. No evidence of any cancer. It's been fully taken care of. But also he found there was power in sharing our stories. As I started to talking to other people, Stan was a little bit reluctant at first. But after talking through it and really seeing what we were trying to do as an organization, Stan was on board. He said, I want to help other men be more proactive with their prostate health. And through his job and really being an advocate, he's really done that. People have come to him asking him about questions and different things. He takes them to our site. We were able to capture Stan's story on our website as well. And it's important in sharing this story because it's more power and understanding that you are going through something that somebody else has also gone through. You're not the only one. Being able to share questions, being able to ask questions, know questions to ask your doctors are important. Knowing that there are other people that may be going through some similarities as far as side effects based on certain procedures that may have been undergone, but also knowing how to deal with family, how to deal with stress, anxiety, other things. These are all important aspects of trying to live your life, live a good quality of life. The other thing we really focus on is advocating for yourself. Now, in my particular situation, my initial doctor indicated I should be doing active surveillance. Now, as an African-American man with a family history of prostate cancer, the last thing I wanted to do was active surveillance. I immediately sought a second opinion. And the second opinion actually led me to another place where I actually was taken by NIH as a prostate cancer tissue study patient. And this was important because as the second opinion, doctor realized when they looked at my MRI, they cannot discern everything that was there, but he says, I know somebody who can. So I was very fortunate to be part of this program and have been undertaken to go through it so they could study my family history and understand what's going on. The other thing that was intriguing to them was I was asymptomatic. I was a very active lifestyle, very active person, and I had no side effects whatsoever to give them any inkling that something was going on other than my PSA was rising. As I mentioned before, being able to talk in these forums and share experiences helps you to discuss what are the various treatment options. Ask people why they chose one over the other, and why they thought it was best for them and their family at that particular time. Overall, as I mentioned before, you got to engage your spouse. Engage your loved ones, engage your girlfriend, your partner, whoever it may be. Help them go through this experience with you. Because if you don't engage them, they're going to go through it with you anyways. So it's best to have them on board. Understand the support aspect that's needed. It's very important to talk to people about what you're going through because you just never know when it's going to help you or help them along the path. And basically let you know, the purpose of our organization is really to help men, to let them know there is life, there is living, there's a quality life beyond prostate cancer. And we're hoping that our ability to consolidate and share information and resources will help men see it through. This is my family. This is the reason why I'm living beyond my prostate cancer. And I thank you for your interest in my sharing of my story and my living beyond my prostate cancer. But most of all, I also thank you for being there and being interested to follow up and hopefully go to get your prostate checked. I really challenge you, if you have not gotten your prostate checked yet and you're over the age of 50, go get it checked. If you have a family history, you should be checked at 45. And if you really have a family history that's aggressive, maybe even 40. But most of all, get it checked and know your numbers so you can start tracking what's going on. For more information about the Prostate Cancer Awareness Alliance and our survivor stories, please visit our site, pcaadmv.org. And please, if you have any questions, feel free. There's a link. You can actually send questions to me. We'll be more than happy to engage. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your interest. And I thank you for your attention.